what is the purpose of this reception?
The purpose of this reception, I think it started out as an event to launch the chair. The university and the college in particular worked on this for a very long time, putting the chair in place, getting the endowment from Frank and Betsy Carell, and so they really wanted to celebrate that they had filled the position. From my perspective, though, it's an opportunity to begin a conversation about what public interest communications really is, and how we begin to define this field and the extent to which people who are working in it begin to define themselves as being part of the field.
Actually, I have more questions. The first one I'm going to ask is that since the Frank and Betsy Carell Chair is the nation's first endured chair in public relations, so how do you feel to be introduced as the first recipient?
It means the world to me. I got to work with Frank for some of the most important years of my career and learned from him, sat in the office next to his, followed him everywhere, and had the privilege of really understanding how he saw communications and its importance to social change. It matters greatly to me that the university chose somebody who did know Frank and had the opportunity to work with him as long as I did. And so even if they hadn't chosen me, I would have hoped that they would have chosen somebody who knew Frank and could tell students how extraordinary he is and how much he mattered to the field. So that means a lot to me. But it's.
So since you mentioned you worked with Mr. Frank, can you tell us some specific experience that you began to dedicate to this field? You just feel so passionate about this field.
A specific experience working with Frank? There are so many specific experiences and specific moments that I can look back on. I remember one being, we were releasing a new report on illness in America and how many people were sick with illnesses that were recurring, chronic illnesses, and what that meant for them and for their families. And this was, gosh, 13 or 14 years ago. And we were planning the news conference, and I went to Frank and I went, Frank, I think it would be really exciting if we could do this news conference over the internet. And at that time, the internet was just born. I mean, people weren't really using it. And his perspective on that was, you think that's a good idea. I don't really see why that's a good idea, but I believe in you, I trust in you. And that perspective of just knowing and trusting, and he gave me just tremendous advice about who to talk to and how to avoid disaster. But it was tremendous to be able to have somebody of his stature, somebody who was so well respected, trust in somebody he had no reason to believe in. And that meant a lot to me, and that was one of his unique qualities. But there were so many times that I got to watch Frank, in motion, dealing with crises, figuring out how to take on really difficult issues, and the wisdom and the intellectual courage with which he approached that was really inspiring. And it was hard to imagine ever being in a position where I would be called on to have that, to exercise those same qualities. But I'm so glad that I got to have those years of just watching and learning from him.